My name is Ben Friedman. Today I am talking the newest Western film from one of our great American actors. I am talking Horizon, An American Saga Chapter 1, which let me show this off real quick. So, for those who do not know what Horizon is, this is Kevin Costner returning to the Western genre of filmmaking. He directs and stars and produces this movie. It's essentially self-financed. That you may have heard about some of the Yellowstone drama that went on last year. Horizon is described as a Western epic spanning over 12 years that follows characters pioneering and exploring the American West. Kevin Costner being on a TV show is really important to actually understanding the context of Horizon, because this movie is weirdly episodic. So episodic, in fact, that I'm actually going to be breaking down and discussing and reviewing this movie kind of geographically, because geographically there's a handful of different stories going on. And you can tell one day they're all going to come together and intertwine, and then all these characters are going to be meeting. In this film, it is quite literally feels like an episode 1, an episode 2, and episode 3, and we're being introduced to all these new characters, a prologue, if you will, and that's going to be important for discussing this review. But we are in a few locations. One of them is San Pedro Valley in Arizona. The other one is in Montana and Wyoming. And then the third character is Santa Fe, New Mexico. Those are the 3 to 4 geographical locations that we really need to focus on. I have this map right here just as a demonstration. So when I'm talking about characters, we kind of know where they are geographically to one another. And so let's start with really how this movie kickstarts, which is the San Pedro Valley, in which we see a settlement is attacked by the Western Apache, and the Apache kills several characters, including the husband and son of Sienna Miller's character in this movie. And this leads to her and her daughter. They meet up with this army baseman played by Michael Rooker's character and Sam Worthington's character. And they are in this settlement. And you also see this young boy in this settlement decide to go off with a group of bounty hunters and chase after the native tribes. That's the really episode 1 of this movie, which I think is also the strongest aspect of this movie, is this first hour mark. Kevin Costner as a director has a very good eye for just the Western motifs, if you will, and it's very well utilized in this movie. There is a scene where the Apache do attack the settlement, and it's frightening. It's a really intense sequence. It is so well shot. It is very visceral and real, and you don't know these characters that well, but you are instantly brought into the terror and horror of this world. And it just uses all the Western tropes and everything that makes a Western Western. Kevin Costner is able to just direct the hell out of this sequence, and it is just an unsettling, horrifying 30 to 45 minute sequence that really kickstarts the movie. And Sienna Miller's character, who plays the wife, she is just so well utilized in this movie. I think she is the best of the actors in this movie. You really buy into this storyline. It is just the one that works the most, especially when we start getting to the Michael Rooker character and Sam Worthington. This is where the movie is at its strongest. I think both on a filmmaking level, I think this is the settlement that we understand the most of. It's the time that we spend the most with in this movie. And then we pivot over to Kevin Costner's storyline, essentially. And Kevin Costner does not come into this movie until about the hour mark of this movie. And remember how I talked about this idea of this movie essentially feeling like a TV show? That's because, like I said, this first hour is really following this native attack in Arizona. And then the second hour cuts to these new characters, and we're in this new location, and there's this completely new storyline. And while we do cut back to Sienna Miller's character in Arizona, it is really primarily getting some of the beats down for the Kevin Costner character and setting up where these characters exist in this world. And to set this up, let's look back at the map again, and we have this character played by Jena Malone, the Lucy character, and she's in Montana, and we are introduced to her, and we find out that she is in hiding with her son from these Sykes brothers. And in basically running from them, she makes residence in Wyoming, and she marries this character played by Michael Angarano. And during there, she basically houses a local prostitute there to care over the child. She's played by Abby Lee. Abby Lee befriends Kevin Costner's character, who's seemingly the main character in this movie, even though he really doesn't have the biggest of roles in this movie. I would argue Sienna Miller is probably the biggest character in this movie, but since it's Costner, you know he's going to have a little bit more star power as this movies go along. And she befriends Kevin Costner. They're, you know, having a little bit of a will they, won't they? And then all of a sudden, the Sykes brothers, they catch up. They're trying to kidnap the child, and we have Kevin Costner and this young girl going on the run together with the child. So that's what's going on in, really it's Wyoming, even though the story starts off in Montana. Again, I don't think I'm giving that many spoilers away, especially because this film is almost really impossible to spoiler due to the structure in which it takes place in, as quite literally being episodic. It's hard to spoil this movie in any substantial way. Because it is essentially a prologue, you're just kind of being introduced to this world. But so we're here with these characters. This portion of the movie was kind of the one that left me a little flat. It's really an interesting decision that Kevin Costner, is the face of this entire project, doesn't show up until, like I said, the hour mark. And I don't think this storyline is that strong on itself. He and Abby Lee have a natural chemistry, but it doesn't fully click. Kevin Costner seems a little not bored by the role, but he's doing a very typical Kevin Costner archetype. We need a little bit more charisma from him going forward to really care about this character. And I wanted a little bit more. Now, Kevin Costner and this scene does have its moments. Like, there is one particular scene involving a standoff that is just such a classic Western moment that it works to quite literally just such wonderful effects. And that's where the brilliance of Kevin Costner as a star power, as a movie star, is just in full effect. And that's where I found the character really engaging. And that's where you want to spend more time with it. This guy that you can clearly tell is not to be messed with. And that is when the movie really reached another level of excitement. So while I do want to see more from the Kevin Costner character, I do really want this character to start being a little bit fleshed out. And as we kind of get to the end, I'll talk about that and what we see from the Costner character, again, without spoiling any details. We're then introduced to really the third episode within this movie. It is kind of kickstarts the second hour. We are in Santa Fe with this wagon trail as they're conversing the Santa Fe Trail in pursuit of this town Horizon, which I believe is supposed to be in this kind of same Arizona area where the film starts off in the San Pedro Valley. And Luke Wilson is the one leading the trail, and we have a British couple played by Ella Hunt and Tom Payne as kind of the big supporting characters in this. And you're just seeing the trail life. You're seeing these characters having to ration their water. You see them going through this adventure. And to be honest, Luke Wilson probably gives one of my favorite performances in this movie. I think he's really good in it. And I got really invested on the drama of these scenes, the character dynamics, who's at play. You feel someone kind of challenge Luke Wilson's authority, and you know that's going to pay off. And so this scene was another one where I was really invested in this essentially group moving west. And it really is a nice kind of juxtaposition of tension in here, where you get the tension of standoffs in the other acts and extreme violence. And here the tension is all through conversation. I found that really engaging. And maybe it's just Luke Wilson also really delivering a good performance in this movie. But this scene really worked with me, as well as the British couple, Ella Hunt and Tom Payne. They're very much a TV character couple, and you're kind of wondering where they're going to go, how much more they're going to develop, but they're kind of causing some of the central tension that's very much getting under Luke Wilson's character's skin. And that kind of leads to this question of authorship that we're exploring. Again, section really worked well, and I think this is really using the camera of this movie very well, because this is, I think, where we get some of the most Western landscapes of this movie. So I really enjoyed this portion of the movie, and structurally it worked intertwined as a nice kind of bringing back and seeing the everyday life of these people having to move west as you realize they are all starting to converge in this one singular area that will be Horizon, and that is what it is. But essentially, to understand Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1, literally, let me pull up the poster again, and can I move that really close? You see that? You see that? Chapter 1, Chapter 2, August 16, literally in less than 2 months. That's really key to understanding this movie because this plays like a prologue. This plays like a pilot episode of a TV show, and it quite literally ends. And I don't think this is a spoiler at all for this movie, but the movie just quite literally ends on a montage of coming up next time. And it's just, you see scenes in this movie that actually kind of serve as spoilers on where some of these characters are going to go and what they're going to be doing. And that's really just how the movie ends. And it doesn't say like coming up next, like it just, we get to this montage. While watching it, I was a little confused by it. I'm like, oh, is this just kind of going through a few years in this town and then we're going to get to this final scene? No, this really does serve as, these are scenes that are going to be in Chapter 2, and it's just kind of teasing you back into the movie. The reason this is so important is because you can kind of tell Kevin Costner has been learning from Yellowstone, the week-to-week dramatization that Taylor Sheridan has done so well and has made him such a successful TV showrunner. And you can see him taking those practices and putting it in those movies, which quite literally means a part 1, a part 2, a part 3, and a part 4. And Kevin Costner has the next one coming out in literally less than 2 months. He's filming part 3, despite the fact that his movie is currently just got to theaters and isn't tracking very well. I'm kind of skeptical. I think this movie actually may end up doing quite well in the future and down the line. And we're being a little initially harsh on this movie. But it is just this fascinating experiment because usually a movie, if it does have a part 1 or a part 2, you can usually say that the movie does have a definitive endpoint and the story reaches that natural conclusion. This one's not that. This is quite literally a cliffhanger of a TV episode where it's just like, this is where we leave these characters, tune back in next week and see where they go from there. And then after that, tune back in next week. So it's quite a puzzling experience to watch in the movie theaters where you're like, I'm not really watching a movie. I'm watching a TV show that I'm having a lot of funness for, that I'm really enjoying, but it's not all working together quite perfectly. And that is just due to TV and film are quite different productions, and how we tell stories is different in those formulas and formats. I mean, not formulas, formats. And it's fascinating to see this guy who's worked both as the highest of movie stars and now as one of the highest of TV stars, blending those true sensibilities in a way that I can't really think of another time that it's been blended in this way. And it has mixed results. It has really exciting stuff in it. It has like it has the film budget, which makes these worlds look a little bit realer and more fleshed out, and you feel that movie quality of them, which is often missing from TV. It also has a bit of a TV issue. Some of the lighting in this movie feels very soundstaged in its approach, and it does kind of have that soap opera week-to-week procedural feel in its storytelling, and that is intentional in this movie. So to say, did I love Horizon or did I think it was all successful? No, but did I enjoy the story of Horizon as a story? Yes, I had quite a lot of fun with this movie. For 3 hours, I was pretty invested in this movie. I was having a good time. And to be honest, I think Kevin Costner wanted the fame of being a movie star, but likes the storytelling sensibilities that involve TV. And that's what he's trying to blend. And it works to some degree, and it makes for something really exciting and unique. And it also makes for a film where you're like, this movie doesn't have really a story. It has some central plots and characters that we're following, but there really isn't an overarching beginning to end. It is just a bunch of events that happen in a movie, serving as a prologue to serve as an introduction to all these characters. That's really what this movie is. So it is successful in the fact that I enjoyed it. It is not successful in the fact that it really serves the purpose of being a movie. You cannot watch part 1 and have a satisfying story. It's just quite literally impossible. You are watching this movie, and you have to understand when you're watching this movie, you are asking it with the question of, okay, am I going to tune into part 2 in 6 weeks? That's how you have to approach this movie, and that's how this movie wants you to approach it. It is not saying like, oh, this movie, you're going to get this story, and then a few weeks later, you're getting its own separate story with these characters that you love and all this. No, it is quite literally a continuation of it. And some people, that is going to really irritate them. So understand that before going in. Understand this serves a TV narrative purpose. That's why I think when this movie comes out to streaming, it's going to do far better. And I think if they can sell this to a Netflix, this is going to enamor a huge audience. At this point, it's a bit alienating and distancing while watching this movie. So I can't say that I recommend it fully, but I can say that I had a good time with it. I have to give him credit for it being an ambitious story and that I enjoyed it. It doesn't all come together, and there is some inherent cheapness brought in there with the storytelling motifs of TV being blended with movies, and there's a reason those two don't blend. With that all said, I enjoyed Horizon and American Saga. Let me bring this poster up one last time because I think it's a great poster. So Horizon and American Saga Chapter 1, which came out in June, I am giving 3 stars to, and we'll see how Chapter 2 does. Mark your calendars because I will be reviewing this movie in August. Anyway, my name is Ben Friedman. Thank you all for watching. Take care. And if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to this channel. Take care. Bye-bye.